Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm finishing off my E3 2017 hands-on impressions with one of the big games of the show, and that, of course, is Ni no Kuni 2. Now, this was actually a big surprise for me coming into the show. We saw it announced at PSX, not last year, but the year before that, and then we got like kind of a short update trailer at the last PSX in 2016, and then it kind of just remained silent for a while, and I kind of just wondered if maybe it was either not happening, or production was going slow, or maybe not coming together. See, the developer of the title, Level 5, has been kind of, well, mobile obsessed. They've always been dabbling in many things. They're kind of a throw shit at the wall and see what sticks kind of approach, especially since they had some initial early success early on, but they kind of just make bunch of stuff and then kind of stick with what works. You know, Layton worked, Inazuma 11 worked really well for them, and lately they've kind of just been these mobile kings in Japan, doing really well with their mobile shit. And, of course, Yokai Watch was a pretty big hit in Japan and other places as well. So I was kind of wondering if maybe Level 5 either just didn't have the staff to make a big console RPG, or maybe they weren't really focused on, or just didn't have the kind of staff anymore that was into that kind of game development. But it seemed like as we came into E3, like, no, like Namco was going whole hog with Ni no Kuni 2 at E3, and this is kind of in stark contrast to the first title that was released. Ni no Kuni 1 kind of stayed in limbo. It was announced initially as their 10th anniversary project, and got delayed beyond that, and really most of the time spent advertising or promoting Ni no Kuni 1 was in Japan, at Tokyo Game Show in particular. So I kind of always figured that it was just too much of a Japanese-y-ass Japanese RPG to get a lot of coverage or press or show floor space at E3. So something interesting happened though. Like, the first game came out and it sold kind of okay on the DS, but it was good, but certainly not great, mind-blowing. Not for a game of what it was providing. And then they announced a PS3 version, and that really didn't sell too hot in Japan. Speculation from people I talked to have said that the problem was that it was following a DS version, even though the story was a little different. It was still mostly the same, and Japan just never really latched onto it. So the only version we got in America was a PS3 version way later on, after the Japanese release of both games. And going back to a little backstory history of Ni no Kuni here, I was super down with the idea of Ni no Kuni. I thought it was really cool, and obviously I'm this unabashed, unapologetic whore for Studio Ghibli material and work, so I was all kinds of fucking down with Ni no Kuni 1. I imported the game. I got it, I think, a day after it came out in Japan. I got it really quick from an import store. And despite not really speaking Moonspeak, there were plenty of people online who were helping out with, just not direct translations or full translations, but enough to get you by so you could beat the game, solve the riddles, and I fucking loved it. Ni no Kuni 1 on the DS in particular, I forget the exact name, but it has something to do with the Dark Wizard. That was a much better game than the PS3 version. The battle system on that one was mostly a turn-based, traditional, Pokemon-style RPG, but you had a 3x3 grid, which you could place your 3 characters, and placing them in different spots could help them because certain spells or special moves cast by the enemy might only affect certain parts of the grid. So if you had positioned your characters correctly, they could either block oncoming attacks, or they could shield others from oncoming attacks, or they could avoid magic spells entirely. The DS version also required you to use the Magic Master book, so every version of the DS game came with this giant copy of the Wizard's Companion, which was this big fake leather, parchment paper style book that was not required for the PS3 version, but there was a super rare limited edition which I was able to snag up. But yeah, you needed the book to play through the DS version, and for me, that was the best kind of off-wall gaming experience I ever had. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about in relation to VR and motion controls, and even really touchscreen stuff. To me, the best, the best interactive experience I've had in gaming was with the very first Ni no Kuni on the DS. The forcing you to use the Wizard's Companion book and having to read all the like stories and lore and solve these riddles and make these like translations of ancient runes while playing the game, to me was fascinating, and it was engrossing, and it made me feel way more into the game, probably in the same way that Max has, it feels like life-changing experience, I believe were his own words, for Resident Evil 7 in VR. To me, it was sort of a revelation with Ni no Kuni on the DS and how fucking cool having something like that was. Because there's been like small things in the past where, say, Star Tropics made you dip like a letter included in the box in water to make magic, letters appear. Well, it was just a password. I think it was only like 4 letters or whatever. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit on the NES had something where you had to call a toll line to get a hint from Jessica Rabbit to solve a part of that game, although now I hear it's I think Angry Video Game Nerd pointed out it's a sex hotline now, which strangely fitting for Jessica Rabbit. So yeah, I mean, this took that to the way big logical next step and gave you a title that was really, really fucking engrossing and really fun. And the thing is that the story was just much better told in the DS version than the PS3 version. The PS3 version came out and they added a bunch of extra story elements to it, and it wasn't paced well. It wasn't exactly the same story. It was kind of like a Earth 1 to Earth 2 retelling of sort of some of the same basic ideas, but then embellishing with new, and it didn't really work. The other thing the PS3 version did is that it took away a lot of lands and areas from the first Ni no Kuni, because that game was used like hand-painted backgrounds and 3D character models running over it, kind of like PS1 style. And it used a completely different battle system, and the battle system was like this half turn-based, half real-time. You could move, but you had this sort of meter cooldown stuff. And the thing was, I don't really like the PS3 version of the battle system, and I don't think a lot of other people were really super into it either. And it just didn't work. Where the first Ni no Kuni story was concise, it was maybe a little on the nose for a traditional Ghibli style story for one of their films, and maybe the battle system was a little too close to a traditional turn-based Pokemon style game. It worked, and it totally didn't get in the way of the game. And I feel that the PS3 version with, hey, let's embellish it, let's have lots more story, lots more voice acting, let's try to like really mix up the battle system, and it didn't work. And as good as the game is still on PS3, I don't think it's all it could have been. And I think a lot of people are really missing out on a really fantastic experience by not being able to play the DS version. And sadly, as much as I asked and inquired about a possibility of some way getting the original DS version on like an eShop or virtual console for 3DS or something, it just doesn't seem like there's going to be any real possibility for that to happen. So I kind of feel bummed about that the world's still kind of getting ripped of its really unique game experience. So that being said, let's moving into Ni no Kuni 2. The reason I'm kind of like embellishing all this is that the demo for Ni no Kuni 2 at E3 was actually pretty goddamn short, so there's not a lot to talk about. We can talk about the fact that it does star a completely new character. It is sort of the same world, although it's explained to me this is Evan's world of Ni no Kuni, or Evan's Ni no Kuni. That'll make a lot more sense to those who've beaten and completed everything in the PS3 version. Just think of it as like possibly, it might be Earth 1 or 2 Ni no Kuni, but it's probably like Earth 3 Ni no Kuni, where it's the same Earth, the same Ni no Kuni, but like a different universe of it. So you'll see a lot of the same locations and maybe some of the same. They're teasing that you'll see maybe some characters from the first game, but how that all unravels, you'll have to like wait and see. Although in this game, you're not really going to be doing a lot of traveling back to Earth, as in the first Ni no Kuni game, which had a little bit of going back and forth, but not a lot. This one, I could go into it where, yeah, you're about a boy named Evan whose kingdom is upstate. She's thrown out of his own kingdom in a coup, This is Ding Dong Dell from the first game, and then the visitor from our world, Earth, is a man named Roland, who was president or prime minister of whatever fictional country on Earth. And then when he gets sent to Ni no Kuni, he de-ages. He's still older, but he de-ages, and he agrees to help Evan basically learn how to rule a kingdom. So in the demo we got, it was literally just 2 boss battles. There was nothing about like the kingdom building aspects, which I'm assured that you do not have to be really good at or spend a whole lot of time building, doing the sim building aspect. So for those of you who are excited about the whole kingdom building aspect of the game that was announced at E3, looks like a kind of like maybe a bit of a return to Dark Cloud roots for level 5, but for me, I was kind of like dreading that. I'm assured that, if you don't really want to spend too much time there, you don't have to. So that's encouraging, because I'm not really good at sim shit, so I'm happy to hear that. It's not gonna be like super required to beat the game. But yeah, so really all we got to taste was a new battle system. And let me just say this right now, like the battle system was a massive fucking improvement from the PS3 game. It is completely real time now. You go up, you whack, you attack, you have rolling away abilities, you have blocking, you have magic abilities, which is kind of similar a little bit in function to Yeast 8, where it's like you hold down, I believe, the R1 button, and then you can charge up one of 4 different magic spells that are all mapped to the 4 face buttons. One of them being a healing spell. There's no little imagined creatures in this game, so the Pokemon aspect's a little gone. That's replaced with these little Higglies, little fire demon, suit spirit, little Ghibli-esque little things, and they're kind of just like more like Pikmin, where they just kind of run in mass around the field. And if you charge up a spell, there's an area of effect which can charge them up. So if you want to say heal, you charge up the healing spell. You just do that by holding down the button for as long as you can without getting hit. And when you let go of it, the area of effect will be bigger, or the spell will be more potent. So, that's all you really got to... You don't really have to worry about them. If they die or whatever during the battle, it's not the end of the battle. It's not really anything you have to worry. You really don't have to worry about Evan. In the final game, you'll be able to switch between the human party members, but in the demo at E3, they said they just limited to just Evan. Probably the coolest thing about the battle system is the fact that there's what I call a just defend mechanic. It's kind of like the nice from the first games, but how it works here is just if you hit defend, which I believe is R1, right before an enemy attack, you'll either completely negate it. So it's like a just defend from Samurai Showdown. So that's kind of nice. There's also a stuffing mechanic, as I call it, where one of the bosses is just like this big Yeti looking thing, and you'll see him do this wind up where he's just swinging his arm, winding up his arm for a big ass punch, and you can charge up your own spell move, and if you get it off before he gets his off, and you get a lot of time to do that, you can knock him out of his own attack. So there's sort of like stuffs and knockdowns, hard knockdowns in the game, and just defends, and that it all works very well. There's not a lot to it. Like I said, you fought a big Yeti boss, and you fought this big fucking griffin, dragon, lava dragon, lion thing. I don't know, whatever. You see it in the trailer. It's a big fucking beast in a volcano. He's a little tougher than the Yeti just because you're fighting him in a place where there's a bunch of lava vents, and he'll do a thing where he'll jump far away from the platform you're fighting on, and just throw shit at you like magma rocks. So the only way you can attack him is with like ice spells, just shooting them out. So he's not as fun of a boss as the Yeti is, just by the proxy of he's so big, and you basically have to wait for him to come up to the edge of the ring and just whack his paws or his face. So that's really all there was to it. You could kind of walk around a little bit of a half or a section of a little town before you went off to fight the Yeti. You got like 2 seconds on the world map, where in this game you're super chibi SD characters, and I fucking hate it. It doesn't ruin the game or anything, but I fucking hate how they look on the world map as like super chibi. I get what they're going for with the old SNES aesthetic or whatever, but God, it just doesn't work for me in 3D. I don't like it. Like the world's so super hyper detailed, yet you're these stupid little fucking keychain figures running around. I don't like it. Not gonna ruin the game. Not gonna dissuade me from playing the game. Just gotta vent my frustration with chibi style stuff. But other than that, like, the game is coming out this year. It's coming out in, I think, November. I might be wrong about that. It's definitely October, November time. Again, I'm like, wow, this is actually coming out this 2017, Year of Dreams. So this will be probably one of the better RPGs to come out this fall. It's going to be in direct competition with Xenoblade 2. And really, as far as like which one I'm looking forward to more, probably Xenoblade 2, but I don't really care. I mean, I'm just happy that we're getting two really high quality looking games. There are no Ghibli cutscenes in this version of the game, which is kind of sad. The former Ghibli artist who did the character designs from the first game is coming back to do character designs for this one, and they are getting new compositions by the legendary Joe Hisashi for the game, who's worked on all of Miyazaki's films, so that's also super exciting. I heard basically not remixes but new versions of old themes used in the demo I played from the first Ni no Kuni, and I'm sure the soundtrack will be, 10 out of 10 perfect. Maybe hopefully get a little bit more compositions than what they hired him for last time. The reason for no Ghibli cutscenes is kind of simple. At the time of this game was entering production, Ghibli was pretty much shutting down and losing all its animation department, losing its lead. So now, not to panic, but it looked like for a while there Ghibli was pretty much done with filmmaking in general, and it's coming back now. They're actually restaffing, they're rehiring for Miyazaki's new film, which is going into production right now. So that's pretty fucking awesome that we're getting one more from the man who said he would retire. But I'm happy about that. And so this game's all in-game cutscene. They, Namco kind of fed the whole line of like, oh, it's better. It's it's all in-game. There's no cuts or breaks. There's no transition. And I'm just like, yeah, but Ghibli cutscenes. As harsh as it usually is, and much as I am more of a fan of in-game cutscenes, I will make an exception when it comes to Studio Ghibli. So I am really sad that that's not coming in this game. So it's not really a Ghibli RPG, and I think, to be quite fair, to be quite honest, I think something is a little bit lost by not having any sort of Wizard's Companion, because there is no like companion piece, book, or anything like that you have to use to play this game. Like, and it's not even like PS3 where they kind of bullshitted it with like here's a digital version of the game on the pause menu. There's nothing like that seemingly in Ni no Kuni 2. You don't need to play anything. It just plays like a regular ass game. So I think a lot of the uniqueness and a lot of the experience of the first Ni no Kuni on DS is lost and is missing from this title. So in the end, what we're going to get is we're just going to get a really good JRPG. But we're not going to get something that completely blows my mind like the DS version of the first game, sadly. But on the other hand, this does look like a big improvement over the PS3 version, both from just story and gameplay perspective. So that's probably in the end what matters most, but I really do wish there was still like a Wizard's Companion style thing to play with this game. It was such a cool fucking experience, and nobody on the Western world got to really experience that except us importers. So that's going to about wrap up my E3 hands-on impressions, for the simple fact that I don't know that I really played much more hands-on at the show floor than the games and the videos I've shown here. Maybe that's a little disappointing because, holy shit, all I did was play platformers and RPGs. Well, that's pretty much how my stream and everything goes. So, yeah, platformers and RPGs galore. I did play some other games, but not really for a long enough time. I played Dissidia NT. Not really super strong impressions there. I played, I don't remember what it was called, like I Am Sakuna or something like that. Sort of a Muramasa-esque style 2D hack and slash with farming elements from Exceed. I played that. Not enough, not a lot of it, so I really couldn't get too solid of an impression. So seemed okay, but all in all, though, it was a good show for me. A lot of good games I wanted to play there, and yeah, platformers and RPGs here. Fighting games at Max's channel, though I do have a video if you want to go back and look at my impressions of Dragon Ball FighterZ, which was a huge surprise and just a wonderful fucking game to play at the show, and I think it's going to be a big fucking deal when it comes out, and I think a lot of people are going to like it, whether they're just Dragon Ball fans or fighting game fans. So, but yeah, that's going to wrap it up for me for E3 2017. Looking forward to next year, of course, and you know what? I hope it can live up to the games they had this year, or even exceed it, because this was a good year. It was a good year for E3. It wasn't the best, but it was good. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the channel. Later, dudes.